The school bus screeched to a halt, its doors folding open like the jaws of a beast. For Maya Rodriguez, stepping off that bus felt like walking into a trap. The scent of exhaust fumes and somebody's overpowering body spray invaded her senses as she gripped the straps of her brand-new purple backpack. Her first day at Riverside Academy, supposedly a fresh beginning after her father's job relocation, but the predators were already circling. 6 of them, commanded by a girl with a smile sharp as broken glass and eyes colder than winter rain. Vanessa Mitchell had sized Maya up before her sneakers even touched the sun-scorched concrete. They formed a wall around her before she could draw a single breath of what should have been liberating air. The snare was sprung, and the spectators, sensing entertainment and violence, began to gather like vultures. If you believe nobody should face their demons alone, hit that subscribe button on the final watch and stay with us for a story about the afternoon justice arrived on silent paws. The dismissal bell had ripped through Riverside Academy's corridors moments earlier, unleashing a tsunami of messenger bags, screamed goodbyes, and bottled up teenage chaos into the heavy October afternoon. The school's front plaza was a distinctly American scene of organized pandemonium. Metal lockers banging shut, diesel engines rumbling to life, harried parents laying on their horns, and hundreds of adolescents savoring those first precious seconds of freedom. For most of them, this was the highlight of their day. For Maya, standing paralyzed in the eye of this storm, it was pure horror. She had done everything possible to remain invisible. Generic clothing, downcast eyes, a direct route mapped out for the walk home. But her backpack, a brilliant violet her father had chosen to lift her spirits during the move, blazed like a signal flare. Van had spotted it from her throne on the senior quad steps, a hunter identifying the weakest prey separated from the herd. Well, fresh meat, Van announced, her voice a theatrical drawl calculated for maximum audience impact. Her squad spread out strategically, blocking every potential escape. The ring of witnesses solidified into a barrier of flesh and glowing smartphone screens. The atmosphere transformed from chaotic to deliberately, viciously focused. Too special to acknowledge us? Van continued, circling Maya like a shark. We're the welcoming committee around here. Snickers erupted from her entourage. Maya's voice came out barely above a whisper. Please, I just want to leave. But her words were drowned out by a mocking laugh from a tall blonde named Brittany, who snatched Maya's chemistry binder straight from her arms. Ooh, honors chemistry, Brittany taunted, flipping through the organized notes. Little genius thinks she's superior to the rest of us? She hurled the binder to another girl who deliberately let it crash to the cracked pavement. Maya flinched as it struck the ground, papers scattering across the concrete. This was their ritual, the systematic destruction of dignity, piece by brutal piece. Van moved closer, her shadow swallowing Maya whole. She flicked the strap of that distinctive purple backpack. Nice color choice. Expensive looking. Daddy spoil you with that? Maya's file noted mother deceased, a detail the administration had somehow overlooked. Her silence, born from grief and overwhelming shock, was interpreted as arrogance. She's disrespecting you, Van, Brittany snarled, and shoved Maya hard between the shoulder blades. Maya stumbled forward, lost her footing, and crashed down hard on her knees and palms. The pavement tore into her skin. Her remaining textbooks exploded across the ground, her water bottle rolling away into the gutter. The circle compressed tighter, phones elevating higher, zooming in to capture every second of her humiliation for digital immortality. Van towered over her, the cruel smile evaporating from her face. Time you learned the hierarchy here. She raised her hand, not clenched in a fist, but open-palmed for something worse than a punch. She intended to force Maya's face down into the filth while her friends immortalized it on video. Maya squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the contact, the cackling laughter, the viral destruction of whatever remained of her dignity. Across the maze of parked vehicles, a woman paused mid-stride. She'd been moving with the efficient, ground-covering gait of someone accustomed to long-distance patrol, dressed in dark jeans, tactical boots, and a faded black t-shirt stretched across a frame built for function over fashion. She was virtually invisible to the status-obsessed ecosystem of the high school plaza. Her eyes, a penetrating shade of forest green, absorbed everything. They locked onto the scene unfolding near bus number 7 with the calm, analytical precision of a threat assessment specialist watching a crisis develop in real time. Threat evaluation. 1 primary aggressor, 5 accomplices, 1 victim, approximately 42 bystanders within immediate radius. 0 intervention. Bystander effect in full display. Beside her, a German shepherd stood at attention, his powerful body coiled like a loaded spring beneath a coat of black and tan fur. A constellation of scars decorated his shoulders and flanks, and his left ear bore a distinctive V-shaped notch. This was Titan, and the woman was former Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Jordan Blake. Today, her mission was straightforward: collect her younger brother Marcus, a junior who considered her presence at school mildly mortifying. She read the situation instantly: the alpha's performative sadism, the followers' reflected aggression, the victim's shattered defenses, the crowd's complicit silence punctuated only by the digital clicks of recording devices. Her muscles tensed like steel cables under stress, but her breathing remained controlled and measured. 4 counts in through the nose, 4 counts out through the mouth. She didn't move forward. Not yet. In her world, intervention, without complete situational awareness, could result in casualties. She calculated angles, identified potential improvised weapons, the bike rack, a loose chunk of curb, and mapped exits. Primary objective: extract the victim. Secondary objective: neutralize the threat while minimizing escalation. Titan released a soundless exhale through his nostrils, his focus laser-locked on the cluster of bodies ahead. He awaited a command, a release word, a single signal. Inside the circle, Van's patience evaporated. She seized Maya's slender wrist and wrenched her upward, her fingers crushing into the fresh abrasions on Maya's palm. Maya cried out, a sharp, agonized sound that finally pierced through the crowd's murmuring and struck Jordan's ears like incoming fire. "Say Riverside rules," Van demanded, her face ugly in inches from Maya's. Maya shook her head, tears of pain and terror cutting through the dust on her cheeks. Brittany, emboldened by the escalation, drew her leg back, preparing to kick Maya's shins. The violence was graduating from psychological humiliation to physical assault. "Stop!" The word wasn't shouted. It was low, flat, and carried the absolute non-negotiable authority of a direct command. It didn't request compliance. It terminated discussion. It sliced through the digital noise and nervous giggling like a blade through tissue paper. The circle of students rotated as one unit. She closed the distance between the parking area and the circle in heartbeats. Titan, a silent liquid shadow at her left heel. Jordan Blake was already in motion, not with frantic anger, but with a terrifying, deliberate efficiency of movement. The dog's eyes remained fixed on the group, a low, subsonic growl emanating from deep in his chest, a vibration you sensed in your skeleton before your ears registered it. Van released Maya's wrist, redirecting her sneer toward this unexpected variable. "Who the hell are you? Some soccer mom playing hero?" Her squad laughed, but the sound was nervous, fragile. Jordan ignored the question entirely. She walked directly up to the edge of the human barrier, and the students separated without her touching a single one, as though repelled by an invisible force field. Her gaze settled on Van, but it felt omnidirectional, seeing every individual, every act of cowardice, every moment of moral failure. "Walk away," Jordan said, her voice still deceptively quiet against the plaza's ambient noise. "Right now. Final warning." Van, her authority challenged before her entire kingdom, inflated her chest. Her designer jacket seemed to swell with false confidence. "Or what, lady? You and your mutt gonna do something? This isn't your business." She took an aggressive step forward, invading Jordan's personal space, attempting to dominate the way she always had. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. In a blur of controlled precision, Titan moved. He didn't snarl, didn't bark explosively. He simply flowed forward 3 steps and positioned himself diagonally between Jordan and Van, his body a rigid, living barrier. His head lowered, his eyes locked on Van's throat, his teeth exposed in a silent, lethal warning that communicated restrained violence more effectively than any sound. The crowd gasped collectively, stumbling backward. Van froze mid-breath, blood draining from her face. The reality of the animal, its pure, predatory focus, its obvious professional training, shattered her adolescent bravado completely. This wasn't somebody's pet. This was a tactical asset. But Brittany, panicked and thoughtless, her adrenaline spiking out of control, made a critical error. She lunged not at the immovable woman or the terrifying dog, but toward Maya, as if to seize her as a hostage or human shield. She didn't make it halfway. Jordan's response wasn't emotional. It was biomechanics. Her left arm extended in a blindingly rapid, surgically precise motion. A forearm strike to the side of Brittany's neck at the brachial plexus. It wasn't a wild swing. It was a targeted strike on a nerve cluster. Brittany collapsed with a guttural gasp, all oxygen evacuating her lungs in an instant. Before she contacted the ground, Jordan's hands followed through, capturing Brittany's wrist and shoulder, rotating her and planting her face down across the hood of a nearby Honda with a decisive thump, arm secured behind her back in a textbook compliance hold. The entire sequence consumed less than 3 seconds. It was fluid, effortless, and utterly conclusive. Brittany wheezed, incapacitated and terrified, pinned like a specimen. The plaza fell into absolute silence. The phones continued recording, but now they documented a different kind of viral moment. The instantaneous, brutal collapse of a social hierarchy. Jordan spoke, her voice now projecting to every stunned witness, each syllable landing like a hammer blow. You enjoy this? You like targeting someone who can't defend themselves? Does that generate feelings of power? She released Brittany, who slid to the asphalt, clutching her shoulder and sobbing openly. Jordan's eyes swept across the crowd, making brief, searing eye contact with dozens of students who immediately averted their gaze. Real strength protects the vulnerable. It doesn't terrorize them. Remember that lesson. Then she executed the most powerful action of all. She turned her back on them. She dismissed Van and her entire empire as beneath consideration, as a neutralized threat. She walked toward Maya, who was trembling violently, frozen in traumatic shock. Her entire demeanor transformed. The operator disappeared. The hardness in her eyes softened into something resembling maternal concern. She knelt carefully, avoiding looming over her, bringing herself to Maya's eye level. Hey, look at me. Are you injured? Did they strike you anywhere else? Her voice was gentle but firm, a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. She began collecting Maya's scattered textbooks, wiping the grime from the covers with her sleeve. Maya could only shake her head, tears flowing freely now, released by the shock wave of relief and safety. From the crowd's perimeter, a boy with dark curly hair and wide, horrified eyes, Marcus Blake, burst through the barrier and rushed to Maya's side. He placed a protective arm around her shoulders. You're safe now, Marcus whispered, his voice fierce with conviction. This is my sister. Jordan stood, returning Maya's books to her. She glanced over her shoulder at Van and her demolished crew. Show's over. Everyone disperse. Go home. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a new reality being established. The crowd began to fragment, murmuring, casting furtive, frightened glances back at the woman, the dog, and the girl they'd all abandoned. But the story wasn't finished. As Jordan, with Marcus supporting Maya, walked toward her weathered, nondescript Jeep, a siren gave a sharp, abbreviated burst. A campus security vehicle, attracted by the massive, lingering crowd, skidded to a stop. Officer Chen, a man more experienced with confiscating vapes than managing actual violence, jumped out, hand on his radio, his expression set in aggressive confusion. He surveyed the scene, the crying girl, the intimidating, muscular woman with a battle-scarred dog, the bully holding her shoulder and weeping, the scattered educational materials. Nobody move, Chen commanded. What happened here? Van saw one final desperate opportunity to reclaim her narrative. Pointing a shaking finger, she shouted, She attacked us! That psycho woman and her attack dog! She just started assaulting Brittany for absolutely no reason! It was a lie, but it hung in the air. A last gasp of the old order attempting to reassert itself. The officer approached Jordan cautiously, hand hovering near his pepper spray canister. Ma'am, I need you to step away from the students and keep your hands visible. Jordan sighed, a sound of profound weariness with systemic failures. She moved slowly, deliberately. Officer, My brother is one of these students. I was intervening in an assault in progress. She reached slowly into her back pocket. Easy, Chen barked, tense. Let me see those hands. Move slowly. Jordan complied, extracting a simple, worn, brown leather wallet. She opened it and held it out at arm's length. Chen stepped closer, squinting at the contents. His eyes scanned the identification inside. He registered the eagle, globe, and anchor beside the driver's license. He noticed the other, more formal credentials. His face underwent a visible transformation. Confusion to recognition to something approaching respect, then settled into grim understanding. He looked from the ID to Jordan's steady gaze, then to Maya's scraped, bleeding palms and tear-streaked face, then to the pale, guilty expressions of Van and her crew. Chen's posture deflated noticeably. He returned the wallet with a respectful, almost reverent nod. I see, Staff Sergeant. I understand the situation completely. He pivoted toward Van, his voice now official and cold. You, Mitchell, and your friends are coming to the principal's office immediately. He then addressed the remaining students clutching phones. And I'll be confiscating every single video of this incident as evidence of assault and filing false reports. The instant karma was total and irreversible. As Van was escorted away, her reign terminated not by a rival, but by the silent, overwhelming force of a protector who simply refused to look away. The aftermath was swift and seismic. The principal, confronted with Officer Chen's detailed report and the damning, briefly held cell phone footage, had zero room for his customary leniency toward star students. Vanessa Mitchell was suspended not just from school, but from the volleyball team for the entire season, her scholarship prospects evaporating overnight. Brittany and the others faced mandatory detention, community service hours, and a social ostracization they'd never imagined possible. They were now pariahs, branded as both bullies and, more damningly in the high school court of opinion, as cowards who'd been utterly dismantled in seconds. For Maya, the days that followed were a different kind of blur. The scrapes on her palms and knees healed gradually. Marcus Blake became an unwavering presence, a guide through hallways that no longer felt like running a gauntlet. Teachers checked on her with newfound awareness and genuine concern. But the most profound moment arrived 3 days after the incident, when a note was passed to her during study hall. It was from Jordan, delivered through Marcus. Short, on plain notebook paper. Strength isn't about never experiencing fear. It's about standing back up. You did that before I even arrived. Keep moving forward. JB. She kept it folded inside her clear phone case, a silent talisman of survival. 1 week later, Jordan found herself back at the school, waiting in the parking area at Marcus's request. This time, a man with Maya's eyes and a weary but determined expression approached her, his hand extended. Ms. Blake, I'm Carlos Rodriguez, Maya's father. His voice cracked with emotion. I don't possess adequate words to thank you. She told me everything. What you did, what you said to her afterward, you restored her voice. Jordan, uncomfortable with gratitude but deeply respectful, shook his hand firmly. She possessed it all along, Mr. Rodriguez. She just needed someone to remind her it was acceptable to use it. That evening, as always, Jordan sat on her small back deck. Titan lay at her feet, head resting on his paws, one eye perpetually open, monitoring the quiet residential street. The chill of approaching winter was beginning to whisper through the air. Marcus sat beside her, scrolling through his phone. You're a hero, you know, he said quietly, not looking up. No, Jordan replied, her gaze distant, fixed on something beyond the visible horizon. A hero is that kid who decides tomorrow not to laugh when someone else gets shoved around. A hero is your friend Maya walking back into that school every single day. I was just a mechanic, identified something broken, applied the appropriate tool to fix it. She reached down and scratched Titan's notched ear. We were just the right tool for that particular day. But the ripple effect extended much further. Inspired by the incident and pushed by a coalition of parents led by Carlos Rodriguez, the school board approved a new initiative, a weekly peer support group called The Bridge, named unconsciously from Jordan's philosophy of connection. It was a space for newcomers, for students who felt marginalized, to find community. Marcus and Maya helped facilitate the inaugural meeting. The story, naturally, leaked out without the videos as evidence. It became legend, whispered and embellished in locker rooms and cafeterias across the district. The tale of the Marine and her war dog who materialized from the parking lot to shatter the school's tyranny. It evolved into a cautionary tale for bullies and a beacon of hope for the quiet ones, the overlooked ones, the new ones trying to find their place. And for Jordan, life returned to its measured rhythm. But occasionally, when she took Titan for a run past Riverside Academy as the final bell released students into the afternoon, she'd observe groups of kids walking together, laughing genuinely, and she'd notice how the circles seemed more inclusive, the laughter less edged with cruelty. She'd see Maya walking with Marcus, and a small cluster of others, her posture straight, her purple backpack now a badge of identity rather than a target. The scar tissue from that day was forming, not just over Maya's abraded palms, but over the spirit of the institution itself. Some scars are visible, like the lattice work across Titan's shoulders or the notch in his ear, badges of a life spent in the breach, defending those who couldn't defend themselves. Others are quieter, deeper, carved into the soul by words and threats, and gathered crowds that choose inaction. Healing them requires more than a single act of intervention. It requires a community deciding collectively to become better, to stand for something beyond self-interest. But sometimes it takes one undeniable moment of courage, a moment where a woman and her loyal canine partner stand firmly in the gap, to show everyone what genuine strength looks like, and to catalyze that healing for good. This story is dedicated to anyone who's ever felt isolated in the crowd, to the quiet ones, the new ones, the ones simply waiting for someone to see them. Let's build a community that genuinely looks out for each other. So tell me, from which part of the country are you watching this? Drop your state in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you believe in the power of standing in the gap, if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button for the final watch. Share this story with someone who needs to see it, someone who needs to know they're not alone. Because that's what we do here. We watch, we remember, and we stand together. Until next time, stay vigilant.